So if you've ever pirated a plugin, you've probably been more ethical than everybody else using Suno. Let me explain. So I've been mentally working on this video for quite a while because I know I'm going to talk about certain things, many things in fact, that are pretty controversial, I would say, or unpopular at least. That's the way I think about it. So I've tried to look at it like with the most possibly scientific angle, if that makes any sense. And so here's what I think when it comes to the whole battle of using generative AI. Think like Suno or TAD AI or whatever the third, fourth, the fifth big names in the generative music things are, versus the whole idea of piracy. A little bit of a context, if this is the first time you're watching any of my video. Hi, my name is Mehran. I am a university teacher and an instructional designer, and also I used to be a music teacher. And just before I became a university teacher, I was a full-time musician for a very, very long time. I have worked on almost 6 albums, published them, the whole 9 yards, made the songwriting, lyrics, mixing, mastering, production, all of those things. I used to work with a different label and everything, but I moved on to more independent as I moved to France permanently. So with that in mind, I also want to make sure that I send the correct message across. I kind of want to make sure that what I'm trying to say makes sense. And because of that, I don't want to give any specific opinions or biases or any kind of what I think. With that, so are we good? Are we clear so far? Hopefully we are. I have 3 arguments in favor of using generative AI, and I have 3 arguments versus pirating softwares. So a huge disclaimer, I'm not condoning piracy. Piracy is against the law, piracy is against the ethics, piracy is against all kinds of like cool, you're not cool if you're pirating stuff. If you have a plugin or 2 or 10 or your DAW or anything that is kind of like pirated to hell, you're not cool. That's a fact. It's like stealing. I will still try to defend why this could be a learning tool. And I've also been a victim of this. My first album I wrote over like 18 years ago was built on a bunch of pirated stuff. Now I've purchased everything since, all of the licenses, all the plugins, but still, if it wasn't for those days, I wouldn't call myself a songwriter today. Now, let's talk about why, the three reasons why I think piracy is a better option than creating music using systems like Suno or TAD or any kind of generative AI. Argument number 1, and I've written them on like as a script so I don't make any mistakes. You can see I'm kind of a rambly because teacher moment. Argument number 1 is that piracy is and will probably continue to democratize the craft. You know, how many people do you know who have pirated, like who have cracked FL Studio or Serum, and that's how entire generations of bedroom music producers started writing music and creating music. The harm of it, like the whole harm aspect of pirating big softwares, goes to corporations, right? Like big names, capitalism, all of this stuff. And the benefit of this would go towards human skill development. One thing that is very clear, because of AI, we are de-skilling ourselves. Because of automation, factory workers became less skilled in assembly. That's like a scientific thing. I will post the article down below. So argument number 1 is that it made extremely expensive tools available for everybody with a bit of curiosity and the willingness to accept that probably you've put viruses on your computers. But that's besides my point. Argument number 2 is that even if you, let's use Soothe as an example. Soothe is a very popular, like a dynamic EQ system that everybody uses. It's been used over, like pretty much, if an album has received like a Grammy in the past 5 years, Soothe has been involved. I can personally vouch for that. But even if you pirate Soothe right now, you go to one of these like sketchy websites and pirate it, you would still know how to, you have to learn how to use it. Like a cracked Soothe doesn't create your track itself. You still have to understand how the designing of frequencies, you have to hear the frequencies to make sure that you're adjusting the things properly. And the same can be applied for anything, any contact sound, any like a cool piano sound, like the most popular piano sounds in the world, like the Noirs and the Clairs and the Berlin piano, all of those things. If you don't know how to play the piano, you're not going to be able to make your music sound like music, right? So the second argument in the favor of piracy is that you'd still have to learn how to operate that, and through that, the human element of learning, risk-taking, making mistakes, and finally getting the craft to where it's supposed to be can happen. Make sense? Last argument for in favor of piracy, and this could be a little bit of a controversial take, but the industry that we are stealing from through piracy, inside it is exploitative. It's kind of like big labels stealing, like robbing artists for decades. Like the whole, you could argue that you're being a Robin Hood here. It is not the strongest case, but the reality is for a lot of people these things matter, and they would like to, you know, I'm not stealing from anybody who is like losing money. I'm fixing a wrong by doing another wrong. But again, hey, this has been the argument I've heard for like a couple decades now in different studios, that yeah, blah blah, insert big name company, this label like did not pay us the such and such, let's just, you know, use the cracked plugin. It's a whole system. Two wrongs don't make it right, but because I've heard it, I've decided to include it in my list. All right, so these are the three reasons why I think piracy is a better option. To summarize, you'd have to learn the craft. You would end up learning a skill that otherwise you would not be able to afford to go to. That's why YouTube is beautiful, because it has a ton of educational videos for free. I mean, they're kind of like the capital here, like the currency here is our attention, but that's an argument for a different video. Cool? All right. Now, let's talk about why systems like Suno, systems like TAD AI, insert AI generation system, could be useful. The first thing is it lowers the barrier for people who have ideas, but they don't have the technical know-how. So it essentially removes the barrier for entry. Like if you have a melody in your head, you can whistle the melody in your head, or you have a bunch of cool lyrics, like you're a rapper, you don't know how to make a beat, you could just write the thing down or sing it and then send it to these programs and they will make a music based on what you've given them. So it removes the barrier. The second thing is that throughout the history of art, throughout the history of creation, tools have existed, tools have been a part of the metamorphosis and change of art. Many years ago, before even I was born, and I'm not that old, but still, you know what I mean? Electric guitar was cheating to the purists of music. A guitar is a piece of wood with a hole, 6 strings, and you have to tune it with the specific, like, you have to respect the instrument. It's a holy thing. And electric guitar, what do you mean you have to saturate the guitar sound? You have to distort or break the signal. That is heresy. That is blasphemy. That is sacrilege. But in reality, electric guitar was the result of breaking the rules and introducing a new tool to the art. The same argument could be made for autotune. Like if you're using autotune in anything that you're singing on, are you cheating? You can't sing those notes that well, so you might as well use autotune and be famous with it. The reality is, tools have functionalities. Functionalities can change, and functionalities can improve, and functionalities will introduce. So change begets change is what I'm trying to say. People thought electric guitar was cheating, autotune was cheating, and maybe AI is just the next tool in a very long line of changes. Now, are these changes for the better or for the worse? I don't know. I'm not here to judge, at least yet. And last argument for this, which could be again one of the controversial things, is that using AI music, like creating music, generating music through AI, could be useful in the periphery of real creative work. That means you could create you could like come up with your brainstorming sessions could go from a couple of voice notes on your phone to actual music that you can listen to. So it removes some of the physicality and the challenges of recording stuff very quickly because you're brainstorming. So creating like temp tracks, as it's known in the business, like temporary music pieces, or creating reference sounds, or generating reference is a better verb to use here. Generating reference sounds. Hey, I want my distortion to sound like this. I want my piano to sound like this. It is cool. It is kind of like sketching. It is not the art itself, but its utility around it. So these are the three arguments for AI. It lowers the barrier of entry for people who don't have musical know-how and they have ideas. Tools change art all the time, and it's a good, useful tool for the periphery of the creative, like grunt work. You could do the boring stuff faster, if it makes any sense. I agree that even my best case argument for AI music is way weaker than my best case for piracy. The whole idea of generating music versus creating music is like saying a real photography uses like old film and camera tape and stuff, and if you use a mobile phone to like take pictures, you're cheating the system. Ultimately, we, I think, are creating art, and art needs an audience, and audience is the person or the people to whom you're telling the story. And if they like the story, they don't care about how. Nobody cares. I'm going to be honest with you. Nobody cares what plugin you've used to mix your drums. Nobody cares which sample library you've used for your piano. People want to move. People want to emote. They want to feel emotions, and that's what matters to them. You could argue, for the sake of art and artists, are these the same concepts? Artist needs to do the thing through art. That would be a conversation for a different time. What I think is, if it wasn't for piracy, if it wasn't for me stealing a lot of plugins 20 years ago, I was not able to be here, have a bunch of instruments, play a bunch of instruments, record music, and feel a lot more creative. Every time I hear AI music, or at least I think I'm hearing AI music, I think that, all right, so people have kind of circumnavigated the boring parts of songwriting, and like writing lyrics on pieces of paper, listening to it on your phone, listening to the whole process, talking to people. And my argument here is, what if the boring parts is actually the point? Like, why is this battle for efficiency that we've always had forever? Like, there's a point that we lose our humanity in favor of the efficient product. And I don't want to stand in that specific line. That is why I said at the beginning of this video, stealing a plugin, even though, again, not condoning piracy, stealing a plugin or a bank or whatever requires you to learn the craft, learn how to use it, because if you use, again, I'm using Soothe as an example. If you use Soothe as, like, if you put Soothe on all of your tracks and just dial all of the knobs to the middle, it might sound better, but you're not really using the thing correctly. In order to learn it correctly, you'd go to YouTube, you'd read the manuals, you try to do the learning process. And learning, it's something I always tell my students forever. Learning is supposed to be a challenge. Learning is supposed to be a hard thing. Not impossible, but the whole point of learning is to drill, to repeat, to memorize, to recreate until you reach a level of autonomy and you feel like, hey, I can do this thing now. That is the whole point for me. Anyway, that's my thoughts. I hope that I was able to be coherent. This is I like this topic a lot. If it wasn't for like the format, I would have spoken for a couple of hours. I really, really hope that if somebody who's watching this video is a musician and an artist, don't take any of the sides I told you. I could be, for all I care about, I could be completely wrong. What I've seen in my life is that with AI, with generative AI stuff, because I've tried using it for a couple of my ideas, the results were inspiring in all of the wrong ways. I'd rather make my own music sound the same way I like, even if it means less groovy or weaker or more me and less commercially available or commercially acceptable, than to have some kind of a computer program steal my stuff. If it's a matter of stealing, I'd rather steal from the companies who are making plugins to improve myself, and hopefully one day I can afford to buy all of them, as it has been my case. I've been working in this industry for almost 20 years, and the humble beginnings of it was through piracy. I pirated a Cubase, I believe 3, and a bunch of plugins to make music. And now it's a very different story. Anyway, let me know what you think about all of this. I hope you're having a lovely time. Thank you so much for watching this video. It would be super cool if you could do the YouTube thing and subscribe. Sorry for the ranty rant, and I will be seeing you very soon. Take care and peace.